In a flat up in Chicago with a keyboard and some tea lives a man with a funnel plug-in as clever as can be. He ditched his law degree for plugins that go zing. Now WooCommerce dances every time he pulls a string. Hey, the genius, he's got a plugin for that.
Okay, it's a good start. We've got everything running. Good morning, it's Spence. Hello. I am not trying to be Alex Hormozy this morning, nor could I be. I am enjoying a late summer harvest day, and I started my day with a workout and the hot tub, and it's really hot here in a great way. I think it's 75 degrees it says, but after the hot tub it feels great. So I'm feeling really good. And today's topic really could not be better timed. First of all, can any of you guys who are already here chime in and say, hello, how is the sound? How is the sound? How is the sound? Is the sound and the video good? It looks like it's okay on my side, so I'm going to proceed as if it is, but I'd love to hear from you guys. Chime in there. John says, okay. All right, fantastic. Good morning. Let's set the stage for today's topic, because today is going to be a mix, but it's really based upon, I want to take you kids back. My Gen X heritage, which I talk about quite a bit, is that my generation was on the cusp of many technological revolutions. But the difference of when things happened in the past and what I'm seeing now, and what the reason for this topic is today, is that in the past, you had what I would suggest is a window of opportunity to get up to speed on things. And historically, the people that were early adopters really, went on the cutting edge. They spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort trying to figure things out. And sometimes things worked out and sometimes they didn't. If it didn't work out, by the way, it wasn't like tragedy for anybody. There was just an expenditure of time or money, but things kind of stayed the same. In fact, when I was visiting a friend of mine who lives in Los Angeles, if you go to the La Brea Tar Pits, they have a indoor presentation area, and they have this like corner room which has 3 walls, and in the left hand, like sort of this shape, if you go in the left hand corner and you see the history of Homo sapiens, it's like whatever length of time they think we existed, everything technologically sort of stays the same. And then in maybe the room is 15 by 15 by 15 feet. Maybe in the last 3/4 of an inch is all of the technological revolution. I mean, the industrial revolution and onward. If you were to go further, like if you drill down to like a micromillimeter, all of the things that are happening now in our technological world have happened in the last few years. Okay, let's bring this down to more practical sense. I had the pleasure this last couple of weeks of working with a lot of friends who are in various old school businesses, by the way. I wasn't kidding, like I'm hot. And you might notice I went to the dog groomer, so I lost a lot of fur. But in the last couple of weeks having lunch and working with a bunch of friends who are in various industries, here's the scenario that I see. I am in the human business. I think you're in the human business. We are not in the technology business. I have a few friends who, in fact, do WordPress type stuff or hosting stuff. And what they offer and what their clients pay for doesn't even scratch the surface of any of the cool stuff that we're doing. It's just rudimentary. Like they have websites that have e-commerce, and they're concerned about security, and they're concerned about updates. My friend has a roster of many clients. Some of them small companies, some of them big company, who just pay a reasonable amount, like $200, $250 a month, call it $2,500 to $3,000 a year for just that. The base of their business is just a hosted website that's securely updated, backed up, and he takes responsibility for them in the event there's any kind of breach. That's it. He doesn't do software. He doesn't do innovation. He doesn't do any of the shit that I'm doing here. I mean, I host websites for my clients, but I'm making a point. My point is he has, good morning, Dr. Hoover. It's good to see you here, my friend. He has a business that is really, really the type of business that I want to suggest you or I or any Gen Xers / baby boomers want to have. Why? Because the things that are happening technologically are way, way, way too fast moving for any of you to ever try to do on your own. And I'm being bold here because I'm not saying I'm the sharpest tack in the room. I'm saying I love this stuff. This is for me like being a 10-year-old kid again at 58 plus. And I fully intend by the time I'm 60 to come back here and talk to everybody about like, see, I told you so for you and I and all of us. But the point is, in the next year and a half, the stuff is happening so fast that when I wake up in the morning, I probably have to spend the first 2.5, 3 hours of my day just catching up with the revolutionary technological changes that happened that night. But you know what hasn't changed? What hasn't changed is that the people who are using these things are still mom and pops. They're still regular businesses. They could be doctors and lawyers and health practitioners, but they're people who are just like us. Typically, I would say that most of my clients are 45 and older, and they are just wanting somebody to take their hand and walk them forward and be there for them. And this morning was a great example of it because I've talked about my friend Harry, who has the honey business, and I have another friend, Steve, who runs the video court reporting business. And I can go down the list. They all have the same stuff. They all do from hobby to 7-figure businesses, and they are basically running it on Band-Aids and shoestrings and chewing gum. And all of them need and want somebody to say, hey, you know what? I know you're so busy, you can't come up for air. I'm going to just cover your base. So the reason that this is relevant is that a good majority of you guys are not just doing this for yourself. A good majority of you, either indirectly or directly with me, are servicing the needs of other people like I'm describing, who are probably your peers, your generation, 45 to whatever, any age. And they need somebody to just say, look, you don't have to worry about this. I got you covered, because here's what you're going to get. Through your relationship with me, through your relationship with what we're doing here, we can provide them the foundational base for running all of the things that they're used to. But we can keep them not only up to speed, but actually ahead of the curve on all of the things that I'll go into details today, make it possible for their business to not just survive, but to thrive, to exceed the capabilities of the other teams that are doing stuff the old-fashioned way. And I'm glad Dr. Hoover's here this morning, because he and I know of several groups of individuals that are very intelligent, have plenty of assets, who have chosen to kind of put their head into the sand about what it is that's going on. And we were talking about it privately because we wish well to everybody, but at the end of the day, you can't hide from what's happening. The stuff that's going on now is not about what Spence is doing or MinuteLaunch is doing or WordPress. No, this is the world that we're living in. So it's a combination of a few things. Number one, the technology has become faster, cheaper, AI enabled, ubiquitous, meaning everywhere in everything we do. This week, in the last day or two, Meta released what, I swear to God, I have this on recording. We're talking about, these are not them, but these are prescriptions. They were like AI Wayfarer sunglasses that have not just the recording of stuff, but they have projection in the screen. For a guy like me, this is a dream come true because my hearing sucks. Projection in the screen that you can read of translation of what people are saying or data. We are entering into a realm where, imagine you were playing a sporting event, and let's say hockey, football, baseball, whatever. One team has good old-fashioned human beings, and the other team has optimized robots, with superhuman strength, speed, and agility. It really is not a fair game, is it? But that's what's happening in business, because the folks that are coming out today are getting tools that allow them, for example, and I've demonstrated this here, to do research on a topic, to create content, to create marketing, to understand your customers, to generate the output on the page, to do price comparison, to, I go through, but even generating the media itself, producing scripts. And even if you wanted to, you can have it do it where it interacts with your customers. I kind of frown on that because, as I've said before, I think that's the part where you really need to focus on your humanity. But the point is, one person, Spence, since I started this official release and I'm going to call that mid-year, like the summer. This MinuteLaunch AI has got the components, and it's in the hands of folks, of about 28 to 30 well-written functionality plugins with all the modern AI capabilities, plus an operating system. And I was able to do that, plus run the business, plus continue doing custom client work and have a life, have kids, stay in shape, get sleep. And I'm able to do that for virtually like zero cost. I mean, the cost to me is nominal because it's the cost of, let's say, the subscription to the AI services, the LLMs, but I probably put a budget in here of a few $100s a month, which is not that dissimilar to most people. So for a few $1,000 a year, I'm essentially able to stay at the cutting edge of one dude who is approaching the best third of his life, let's say, and wants to continue servicing humanity. I have the tools, I have the capability of sharing that with the people who want to listen, who are including you guys, but it's a top-down kind of multi-level marketing. I talked about this in a couple episodes ago where I said, this is like a benevolent or a service-based multi-level marketing, like a nice Herbalife. You're not scamming. You don't have to get more and more people to join, but the things that I offer to you, you're benefiting me by being the recipients of and helping me understand what works. But then the things that I do for you are the very same things that you can use to service other people's needs, and so on, and so on, and so on. Okay, so let's go to brass tacks on this, because I want to do a combination here of like hypothetical, practical, what's coming, and so forth. On a practical level, what I'm referring to when it comes to is your business falling behind is, how are you dealing with your customers? And I'm just going to come out and say it to you guys that the best business in the world, the only business in the world to be in, if you're in online, is one that has an automated recurring revenue every month for clients that are essentially self-service. They don't need your help. And there's lots of variety in this, but that is exactly the kind of business you can be in with the MinuteLaunch AI system. And it's exactly the kind of business that I'm really trying to build with a couple entry points for all of my clients and customers, including you. That is to say, every month you have a subscription, or annually, you pay me a certain amount for your foundational tools, your systems, the things into which you pour your data, your knowledge, your information, your life, your livelihood. Why? Because that amplifies the two things that you can deliver, that I can deliver to you as a Gen Xer or older. Number one is the wealth of experience from human relationships. In other words, as long as we are still taking breaths, the robots aren't going to replace us for how we think and how we act. You can see this every day when you talk to somebody about like a movie or a restaurant. I have a jillion ways I can find out what's the best place to eat or what's the best movie to see, or, you know, so what do? I ask my friend, I'm like, did you see that Tom Cruise movie? Was it any good? Is Brad Pitt really worth seeing in Formula One or whatever the movie is? And same thing with restaurants. Like, you can read the reviews, even if they are written by other humans. You really want to interact with the person. But the basic thing is that if you have a business that is providing the foundational tools, you don't have to use all of them, but for those that are used, you've already got an understanding of them that you can share without having to spend every waking moment, like I do, learning what just happened overnight, what just changed overnight. Like the IKEA model that I've referred to so often, I can be your guide in that regard. I can be the Ingvar from IKEA. And if we get a new set of drawers that comes in overnight that fit into that cabinet I told you about or sold to you last week, last month, last year, that you sold to your client last week, last month, last year, guess what? The good news is you can just have that and you don't have to figure out what the hell does that mean. I'm going to specifically refer to something in that regard with John, because John is one of my favorite guys here. John, yes, I do play favorites. No, I mean, obviously, Dr. Hoover, you're here as well. But what I'm saying is, John last night sent me an email, and I'm just going to share with you or show with you what I mean. I'm going to the screen. And this is an example of how if you want to be in the business that succeeds in 2025 and beyond, if your clients want to, they have to, and you have to just say, you know what? I've got a concierge at the front desk in Spence, and he's going to provide all of the latest and greatest stuff and validate that it works. And I don't have to think about that. I can just think about sitting up here in my room at the Four Seasons and enjoying the view. And I think your clients will get that from you because you're passing it down. Here's what I'm going to share with you. This was really one of several things that I'm excited to share today. This is going to be interesting too. Let me see if I can pull off. I'm doing the browser dance thing. I'm going to go to this screen. Let's see if I can pull this off. This should look like a mess, but let's see. I'm going to the Spence and browser layout. Okay. Let me put this into context. I don't want to share John's email specifically, although John, if you want, I can. John basically just said, hey, Spence. This is not what he sent me, by the way. This is something I'm developing. He said, hey, Spence, I've got this lady or this blog post I read that was about how to do text-based prompts for video stuff. Will this work if we put in what's essentially called JSON into the video creation tool? Now, let me put you back in context, by the way. If we go over here, we've got one of these tools that is really revolutionary, in my opinion. I wrote it, so I'm biased, but it's the Flow Video Creator. This is something in the WordPress site that allows a normal person, a lay person, to essentially use the power of Google's Veo 3 video creation to create any kind of videos they want and organize and manage them in a really awesome way. And one of the things that John sent me was this information about prompting, and I tested it out. And what I ended up doing was creating exactly the video that I think it has sound. I don't know if, but now the prompt itself looks something like this. It's, if you spread it out, it's essentially what we call JSON. That's just a structured language. And I'm going to show it to you in a different format. But if you looked at that, you're like, what? That is just way too hard. There's so much stuff there. But the point was, he read an article, and let me see if I got the article here. This is actually great. Yeah. Here's the article here. And the article was talking about the director and the machine moving beyond the prompt to take control of AI content. This is a guy, Stephen Smith, who had written about how he does video production. He makes a lot of clips. Oh, okay, good. So John says, okay to share. He was blown away. This is August 1st. This is recently, about how some scenes and movies he'd seen were made with AI. And he's like, how the hell is this being done? And he noted that the prompts were very complex. He referred to this lady named Emily, who was doing things like this. This is what the JSON would look like if it was structured. Now, I don't want to get geeky, but I'm saying is, see all this crazy stuff? It's just lots of details. And John said, if I gave you this thing, would it work? And sure enough, it works great. The reality is, if you have a client or you want to make videos, what's going to happen is you or I or normal human beings are going to go into this awesome tool that I've got that will make the videos, manage the videos, do all this stuff. And you know what we're going to type? We're going to type a beautiful cat sitting on a windowsill looking out in the falling snow. That's about as good as we're going to get. Because I have no freaking idea, even as a guy who's done video my entire life. I'm getting a notice of some show that's happening right now. Even as somebody who's done this my entire life, I have no concept of how to make a prompt that would generate these kinds of crazy, awesome images. And let me, by the way, share with you a couple of the other outputs because it's worth noting. These are the kind of outputs you get from these kinds of prompts. So you can imagine, whether you're a video producer or whether you're a client that wants to make content about their product, their services, or whatever, in order to generate all of this amazing stuff, you need to have a tool that does it. Now, I started thinking about, well, where does the rubber hit the road on this? And this is what I came up with. I spoke to John about it, and I said, you know what, John, I think what we really need to do is take the tool that we've got, which is, and by the way, let me shrink this down a little bit. Let's take the tool that we've got, which is the Flow Video Creator that allows us to save and manage whatever. And let's add a production script generator. That is to say, what if we did something that is a hybrid of the latest technology, literally from this week, that allowed somebody to go ahead and just not only set up the basics of the shot, like, oh, wouldn't you know it? Like, now I got to go to switch the screen because it's not showing modals. Hold on. This is where I get annoyed with, I have to remove this and show you a different view because otherwise it's not going to share modals. Hang in there, kids. This is part of the StreamYard magic. I'm going to have to show the entire screen, which is going to be a drag, but I'm just going to do it for now, and then we're going to move on from there. Okay. I do this every week, and it always annoys me, but let me go super big. Super big. Okay. So this actually is good because it allows me to show more of the stuff that I was talking about. All right. So basically, this is what I came up with last night. And as an example of a competitive business tool, imagine you have a client and they're in a particular industry. Maybe they're, again, like Dr. Hoover and I are working with people who are in the nutrition business or the supplements business, or it could be a doctor, could be a lawyer, could be somebody that's selling widgets. Who cares? Point is, we can give to you a tool that you can give to them that would allow things like this. This is a shot configuration tool that works. I mean, I was able to build it that fast with the flow video. So I'm going to do one live here. What we do is we can either load up a template, like let's do a corporate interview. We can save templates. We can use AI suggestions for templates, which by the way is awesome too, because right out of the box, the AI suggestions can help us fill out the stuff if we're not using the dropdowns. But this is where we got a starting point where it's, you know, choose the type of shot. These are cinematic kind of things like bird's eye view, low angle shot, Dutch angle. Nobody knows what the hell a Dutch angle is unless you're in the business. Static hold, handheld movement, whatever. Okay. Scene. Where's the setting? Here's a bunch of pre-made settings, or you can type it in. What kind of lighting? What kind of atmosphere? Now, I want to relate this because, for example, Dr. Hoover and I are working with people who are in the particular business of supplements. And there's lots of things in healthcare. I'm using another tool that is, I think they took in $42 million of venture funding. And they have a really nice interface that's nothing more and nothing less than what I can already do. But it's focused on using quotes from actual medical journals as the answers, so that it's definitive for doctors and healthcare professionals. But as far as what's capable, we're capable of doing the same and more right here. So I can, like we're talking about, I can have one or more subjects. I can put them together in this setup with the action, with the audio, with the visual. Let's have fun here. And let's just do a pre-saved urban action. Okay. I have no idea what the hell this is going to generate. But what I can do is copy the JSON. And then what I did yesterday for John is I just went over to the tool and I just pasted in that entire long output of stuff. And let me see if I can show you what that looks like. And I'll zoom in a bit here. See all that stuff? It's just, it's not terribly hard to figure out. I don't actually like this. So I'm going to go farther. I'm going to go with something a little more specific, by the way. Let's do the scene, urban cityscape, neon site. Let's do shot setup. We're going to say 8 seconds, tracking shot. We're going to do subjects. There's 2 subjects. And this says action performers in modern clothing. We're going to say specifically, I'm going to say a tall man, 6'2" with dark curly brown hair. A short woman, 4'11" with blonde straight hair. She's wearing a pink hat that has a boa feather in it. Okay, and I'm going to give her a prop. The woman is holding a gigantic fan and she keeps waving her face with it as if she's really hot. Okay, and I'm going to save that character. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy the JSON. I'm going to go over here and this will wait to see while it bakes. I'm going to paste that in, and then I'm going to give it a title which says Scene 1 from Live Office Hours. I'm going to generate it. Now, with the Flow Video Generator, you or your client can just, without any effort, get all of the benefits of using a tool that let's be honest, setting this up or using this through one of the other tools is possible, but you lose all of the other intangible benefits. You lose the fact that you don't have a library, you don't have the capability of customizing, you don't have continuity, you don't have any of the stuff that will come from using this baked in system. And they can have this system, again, they're going to pay for their own keys for this, but for like $50 to use for 200 video shots, typically, use about 80 credits out of 40,000 for an 8-second shot. This is really crazy power. And then the videos that are created are just like any other media library content. They can be stitched together either in a tool that I have here or an outside tool like the Google Video stuff. Let's talk about this while it's processing. I'll come back to this. I'm going to come back while it's... What the hell am I talking about in terms of the business competitiveness? Well, I was one of the first people that I know of that ever did videos. I started doing it in 1999. Yes, kids. The cameras were about the size of a house. I was flying these machines called microlight trikes, and I was in a trike and trying to mount these giant things. And then when I was done, I had a special PC. It was an XT model. It had what's called the Pinnacle video card. I think that video card cost me at the time like $9,000. And I would put in this video stream. By the way, I had to take it off of the camera from a tape. It was an analog tape into a transcoder that made it digital into this card. And this card saved it to a hard drive, which I think, kids, you laugh at this, I think it was like a 30 megabyte hard drive or something. And like all day later, if I was lucky, I would get a postage stamp size video out of it. This was before YouTube. Shortly thereafter, around 2001, when my first son was born, they started coming out with these Sony handheld micro DV cameras, which really revolutionized things. The tapes were much smaller. But here's what I want to relate to you. When that industry happened, everybody had previously been using Super 8 millimeter, film. People had been using rudimentary video. There was professional cameras that were being used in the adult film industry that were gigantic. Those were one of the kind of things that I was using. As soon as they came out with the consumer stuff that was in your pocket, then they started making the software, and then everybody started doing stuff. It democratized the whole thing. And if you were in the business of doing anything with video, you really had no choice but to keep up. You really had to learn about the digital tools, the digital tape, a different way of transcoding. You had to learn once YouTube came out or Facebook came out. You had to learn about how to do things differently. And in doing so, we all upgraded, but we did so relatively slow. I mean, that took between 2000 and whatever, the 2010s. With this AI stuff, imagine today you've got a client who needs to make content. And the content that they need to make has to be done quickly, cheaply, effectively. Imagine their competition uses tools like we've got, and they're cranking out all this stuff instantly without any problem whatsoever. And your client's sitting there hiring some dude in the Philippines, no offense, who's doing it the old-fashioned way for $1 million, or a marketing agency for $10,000 a month who is still paying for Facebook ads and stuff. What I'm saying is, you cannot afford, your client cannot afford to stick their head in the sand. But in terms of practical price, guess what? You don't have to charge them for this revolutionary technology. You can just sell them the base relationship. What I intend to double, triple, quadruple down on is selling the base relationship. For $30 a month, $300 a year, you can get MinuteLaunch AI with the core tools in it and the operating system. For $97 a month, $970 a year, you can get the whole setup with software and email support. If you go up the food channel, you can go $5,000 one-time setup, $1,250 a month, and have me run your entire operation, including, as I'm going to show you, everything that has to do with the marketing and the products. I've got a lot to show and tell today. Don't worry about it. Okay, so let's go back now that I kept your attention there. And here is what it spit out. Let's look at this bad boy. Tall man, dark curly hair, short woman, straight blonde hair with a fan, fanning herself. The dolly shot, everything else, all done. Done. John and I are sharing old man problems here. My first hard drive in 1979 was 5 megabytes and cost over 5,000. I want to say what's interesting to me, I was a hoarder of some things like hard drives. For some reason, I was concerned about the security of those things. And so when I moved to my house here recently, I had a milk crate of all the hard drives that I had ever had since forever. And I think there was 30 or 40 of them. And I paid a service, among other things, to shred them all. But it was hilarious because I had like 100 pounds of hard drives, which is a problem we don't have anymore because everything's in the cloud. Case in point, back to my friend that I was talking about earlier as far as a selling point. He is selling security on the hosted site with updates and backups. That's it for $2,500 a year. And businesses are willing and happy to pay it. Why? Because if their e-commerce site is running, they need to know that they've got daily backups. They need to know they have hourly backups. They need to know that somebody's managing the updates. If you're making a living with your website, like many of these companies are, you just need that stuff done. It's like, if I look outside my house now, it's a beautiful day. It's like I pay for somebody to sometimes do my landscaping or get on my roof and clean my gutters or stuff that I know I need to do. But if I just rely on myself, I will not get it done. And so that is the point. Let's show you more. Here's another example. By the way, I hope the takeaway is obvious to you. So now what I've got is a library of stuff that I own that I can import right here to my media library. And this is one of the tools that I give to you as part of this operating system that you can give to your client. That notice, here's my prompt. I have some tools now for quick editing. I can browse to add other library elements into here and combine them, or I can just change this if I wanted to and submit a new prompt. Ta-da! This is easy enough, like IKEA, for your client to just use out of the box. That's the point. All right. I have so many new toys, but this is one I really am excited to share with you. Two things I mentioned. One was setting up a WooCommerce site, but the other one is for visual editing. Okay. Many of you guys know that what I've been harping on is why, and by the way, this doesn't even have Cadence installed. This has the janky, old-fashioned 2025 theme with that crazy Matt Mullenweg invention, full site editor, which nobody likes, nobody wants to use. But here's what I'm going to show you. This is a blank page with no special theme. If you go to the bottom and I crank open this tab, I've got a new tool. Here we go. Called the MinuteLaunch Visual Editor. Now what this is a combination of all of the tools that a normal person wouldn't want or need to customize pre-made AI-generated layouts. So for example, as I've told you before, rather than me dicking around and putting in all this stuff by scratch, this is a heading, this is a paragraph, here comes an image. I mean, all this manual work is for nothing. Why? Because all of the stuff that I'm doing here takes a human being infinitely more time than an AI, and the AI can do it better. So for example, if I just go to any plain Jane, I'm going to go to Claude, or I can go to OpenAI's ChatGPT or whatever, Perplexity. But we've already got this built in. One of the tools we've got built in is the Spence Style tool, or the visual editor. Let's just have it build an HTML5 thing like I did for today's email. I'm going to say, listen, I want you to make a beautiful HTML5 layout that's going to be used on my website. It should be a single panel. It should feature a really beautiful, dramatic, shadowy image of something like a phone, and then make it like a single page billboard. And the reason that I want you to do it not like an AI tool, I want you to make it look like something that would have come from Nike or Apple, is that I want to demonstrate how beautiful you can make this panel. Give it to me in HTML5 and separate out, if you want, the CSS so that it's like got just HTML, and then separately give me the CSS, and I will put them together. Now, you guys know, because I talked about this last time, I've got a tool built into Claude that allows this to happen automatically. But I just want to show you that in this new competitive world, my suggestion is nobody is going to be making stuff with page builders. It's moronic because we've already got things like the Meta glasses that people are going to be wearing. People are not going to be interacting with web pages. And if they do, all of the content is going to be instantly and dynamically generated by the AI, which is back to, again, I don't want to keep referring to the same people. Dr. Hoover and I were describing, it's literally like people at the turn of the century saying, you know, man, I wish I had a faster horse. And everybody's like, dude, there's these things called motor cars, right? It doesn't mean horses are dead or they go away. It means that everybody for business is going to be driving motor cars and trucks and going faster and using gasoline. And to have conversations about the horse is just a waste of time. We are going to be having all of the content that still exists on traditional web pages. It will all be produced by HTML5 methods by an AI because the browsers use at the visual level HTML5. They may produce the content from a variety of different methods. Like I was referring to video. I used to have analog. I used to have film. I used to have digital videotape. Then you had little digital recording storage devices. Now you've got cloud-based, but they still output, guess what? Onto a screen. Similarly, that's what I'm saying here is that this thing right now, even with no prior experience with me or anything, will probably produce something pretty awesome. And I'm going to just show you how we would just literally put this into place. And in doing so, we have the ability, and here's the key point, for a human being to still interact with it. Okay. Now, this is interesting because he segregated it out like I asked it to. So let's just see what he came up with, he or she. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go over to this. The trick in all of this is for me to remember as a human being which page I'm on. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the HTML area, and I'm just going to paste that in. Second of all, I'm going to go to the CSS, which again, you do not need to know how to do CSS as a human in 2025. Neither does your client. But the fact that they can have an AI teammate do this is really revolutionary, right? And then I'm going to take the CSS, I'm going to paste it. Oh my God. Now, here's what's so awesome. This is a visual editor. Here's my whole point. Spence, as a human being, having done this for my whole life, said, what's the biggest pain in the ass with WordPress and Gutenberg? You use a page builder or you do whatever, and then you can't edit it because you don't understand, other than through the page builder, how to get to the stuff. Well, it's much easier now because even though I just took the AI generated HTML and CSS, I, as the client, can just open this up and say, type in any word I want, right? Let's see if I click in here and I'll just do, this one's moving, so it's going to make my words a little more challenging. But even if I went over to here where it said beyond, I could say awesome. Awesome innovation. And when it comes to things like the color or the font or the style, let's say here, discover more, where it's static, so it's easier. Discover more now, right? I could type in discover more now. And if I wanted to edit this stuff, it's within my realm. One of the things that I noticed, by the way, which is interesting, because as I'm talking about that, I'm going to use this inspector. So you can see, I can see which thing it is, and I can edit it and then copy it into paste. This being animated is making it a little tiny bit of a challenge, but I like the fact that I do this live. So what's my bottom line? My bottom line is that this is an example of another tool that could live inside of your client's site. And I have an option for this, by the way, on the back end, where if you go in the visual editor, you can use it as a standalone tool that pops out. So in the settings of this, you can have, you'll never see that, it's too small. There's an option here that says full width meta box default or sidebar with modal pop-up, which let's change to that. And what that does is it probably will make it a little easier for some folks, because now if I go to a new page, add new page, let's see how this works out. There should be in the sidebar a button, open visual editor. And there we go. So now I've got a modal window that somebody can use, save the content, export it into the page, and you're good to go. Now, this by itself isn't like, oh my God, Spence, the world stopped turning, but it's an example of how we can move into, with this system, back to my point, a competitive advantage. You and your clients would never build that. None of this stuff. The 29 or so things, you would never build it. I wouldn't normally have built it, but I already have 20 years of experience doing this stuff. So for me to build it means that I can give you, for the very same price that I just outlined, everything that you can move into the future with and your clients can move in the future with. And that's the point, because even if your clients buy the MinuteLaunch AI or the MinuteLaunch startup, you're getting paid as an affiliate. You're getting paid to bring them in. You're getting paid to make them happy, get them competitive advantage of tools and stuff. Again, it's like you're turning them on to IKEA. By the way, worth mentioning that some of the stuff at the high level, like managing sites, this tool is not fully baked yet, but one of the things that I'm doing is for these practitioners, Dr. Hoover and I are working on this. We have white labeled products. In other words, besides setting up hopefully dozens or hundreds of WordPress sites, remember I talked to you guys about the Mad Libs concept? So here is the MinuteLaunch WooCommerce launcher. I'm going to call it something a little lighter maybe. All of the websites have essentially the same components, the same needs. I talked about this last week and I've improved it slightly since then. We can take a new client who comes on automatically and using AI can automatically load a sample, extract all of the information from an email or from online about that person, and put it into what is going to ultimately become their site. But the part that I've added since then was also these clients in this particular situation have a need for products that come from a centralized source. And instead of doing 170 products manually, I'm able to use the tools to go out and get the data for the products from, in this case, a particular source, but it could be from any source. Create 170 products, load it into each of these sites, or selectively do that. In other words, let's say some of the clients only want a selection of 12 items. Great. The point is, whichever way we do it, the clients can get all of the products with all of the details, including the images and everything else, set up, ready to go, the price, the cost of goods sold, everything ready to go. Why is this relevant? Well, imagine that you've got a client that has a fundamental need of running a store, which has WooCommerce at the heart of it. 99% of their problem, I guarantee you, is managing the goddamn store. It's just managing the updates and the orders and the refunds and managing the documentation and keeping the images right and making it optimized and making sure it's secure. And what does that come down to? What if you had tools like this that you could offer to them at a base price that you get paid for, but then you, a non-expert in anything other than what you want to be an expert in, could be in charge of running it using these kinds of tools? In other words, you have access to the very same AI stuff that makes it possible for you as a Gen X/boomer to have a third part of your life business that has dozens or hundreds of clients who pay you every month, whether or not you're doing anything, for their base result and for your expertise. But your expertise is no longer, hey man, go grab a shovel and go in the backyard and dig a hole all day long. Instead, it's that you have access to the cutting edge stuff that has been adapted to a system that is standardized, optimized. Let me show you another example at work. I'm using this box called a Stream Deck that I wish I could share. I'm going to show you I use a box on my desktop. This is nothing to do with optimizing for your clients, but Stream Deck. I'm going to zoom this bad boy in a bit. Okay. The Stream Deck I have looks like this. It's worth every bit of the 199 bucks. It's programmable buttons. I'm sure many of you use this or have seen this, right? John, for sure. You can program these with macros or one-click buttons, but the idea is that this also has little dials and it has this swiper screen. And so what I'm able to do is program it. So if I press a button, it will pop up a window with Fernando's cousin. In this case, it's going to pop up, I think, his guitar tab's cousin, right? So let's see if it works. I was doing this at 2 in the morning last night. Come on, Fernando's cousin. Let's see if it works. I think the problem is I've got him open already. There he is. He's just underneath the window. So here's Fernando's cousin. The point I'm getting at is that this is a tool that I've talked about, Cursor, that I use on my desktop. I have another tool that optimizes my ability to have, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different agentic tools or operations or things. Imagine you had a button, literally, that pulled up a list of all your clients, and that the client's operations with the AI could just pop up in a window. You could literally have a tool that at your desk, like I'm kind of working out for myself, allows you to have a metaphor of a factory that has 100 workers in it that work for you, and you could call up any of them with a button or a dial or a knob. They can do their work, report back to you. Okay. This particular one was the one I was referring to. This is the guy that's building for me, because I play music in a band, a guitar music tab display. So like we can put up our songs on the TV when we're practicing with all that stuff. What I wanted to show you, though, beyond that was this. Yesterday evening, this is my problem. I have 8 billion things. Yesterday evening, I was working in Canva, as I always do. And I was working on this project here. And by the way, Canva has so many tools that I have to admit to you, I kind of get a little lost sometimes in my navigation. So you have to forgive me for that. But I was using the AI tools. Let's see if I get, nope, that's not the one. I have to literally like find my way back to where I was at with Canva. Sorry. This is probably a weekend project for me by itself. Projects. Oh man, hold on. Hang in there, kids. I was in the AI world. Here I go. 4 days ago, 5 hours ago. I think it's here. Okay, yeah. So what I was doing here was I called up one of my agentic tools, which is called, it's not called Fernando, it's called MinuteLaunch Business. Let me pull him up. And you can hopefully see this. I'm going to try to zoom it in and make it super gargantuan. But I said to this guy, hey, man, I said, go through, I started up here. I said, go through all of the MinuteLaunch plugins we've got and list them out along with what they do. I want the title along with what they do. And I think it came up and it said I have about 25 of them. And I said, the reason is I want to give it over to Canva. Generate a prompt for me in Canva. And then I took the prompt in Canva. And this is, again, a competitive advantage tool I speak about with my brother, Vince DePinto, graphic arts specialist. Canva allows you to create really beautiful, really interactive stuff. I took the prompt and then I just split it off one by one. And I said, make each of the logos that are going to go onto the sales page or the product for the things we're talking about. Like here's the simple gallery that I built for Sandra last week. And it gave me a whole bunch of choices, right, from which I can choose. Here's what's really neat about Canva. It's a perfect example of a hybrid that gives an advantage to you and your customer. Why? You can create the content, create the prompt, create the source for what the AI wants to build, and then it makes the prompts for you. It takes the prompts in Canva and turns it into examples that you or your client can just choose. I like this best. But then you can use the Canva editor. Much like I was just showing you with the tool I built into WordPress, the Canva editor takes the stuff and allows you to edit it further. So in other words, if in this case I wanted to break it out, I could, I'm not going to bother you with this now. I could break out the various elements of this and change the font, change the this, change the that. And so it gives me a tool as a human being to expand upon what it is that the AI was doing, but in a way that ends up giving me what exactly it is that I need, which is I need a bunch of really cool things that I can download and save and share for making these new products. Canva itself has an AI that I can continue using here if I wanted to elaborate on this, right? So even if I went into the Canva editor, now why is this an advantage? Well, Vince and I, he being a professional in graphic arts, we're arguing forever, and in a good way, a fun way, kind of like John and I argue about stuff. What does this mean for professionals? What does this mean for lay people? Well, it means that, quite honestly, I don't think professionals are required any longer to use Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. That would be mental. In the same way that like a filmmaker or a videographer is not going to spend $300 million making a film now when you can do all these clips that look awesome, feel awesome. I'm going to use tools, but the tools are now democratized. So remember back to my video example. When I first started making videos, that's where the Trike Pilot audience came. I have 11,000 people after 25 years that are on Trike Pilot. It started with me and a gigantic video camera on my shoulder and just a love for doing something that nobody was doing. This is where the tools democratize stuff. As this moves fast, the business owner is going to have tools that will allow him or her to do whatever they want. The choice is, will they? And I'm saying your business as an implementer, as a person looking to build a business, is you now have an infinite amount of capability to do really crazy cool stuff. Don't focus on digging holes with the shovel. Instead, sell the systems, use the systems. For example, even here in Canva, I can continue to iterate by doing actions with the AI if I wanted to, right? If I could say like, let's see, change the background color to red. Okay. I can just, it gives me some examples and I can drop this crazy stuff in place. And I'm not saying this is perfect, but I'm saying like, I'm no longer, I would probably put this in the layer. I'm no longer locked into the kind of stuff that was really complicated in the past, right? The reason this is difficult is because this other thing below it is merged together. So, but the point I'm making is I'm no longer locked into the things in the past that would have been very difficult. Me using Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator was always torture. And when Vince and I were arguing about was whether or not it makes any sense for people to use these tools professionally, I think yes, because when I look at this and I say, I love the WooCommerce Launcher logo that I've got here. Could you take the same thing and make the background red? Let's see what it'll do. Let's see if I don't know if it does, but I think it knows which one I have open. I'm not 100% sure how this works because I just started using this feature today. Yeah, it kind of screwed it up a little bit, but you get the idea. It's just infinitely iterating. And to my mind's eye, I can come up with 25 really cool things, which then when I have them, I will download and save, right? Because now I've got them here. And I just, I can download the link or I can download the item. Let's just say if I download the link and I don't need it 1024, I need it 512. I say maybe make those a minimum of 80 kilobits. Maybe I got to do 180. And I just say download as a PNG. What's awesome about that is let's take this the next step. If I did that, I can have that, by the way, through Claude automatically brought over, but I could just manually bring that into, for example, the media library. And for this particular thing, I'm going to add, let's do it here. Add a media file. This is just old school tools. And again, one of the things that I may end up doing, I'm not sure, is making a front end layer that's even easier for normal persons to use, because this is okay, but it's still a little janky. Okay, now we can do the same kind of thing, right? So I'm going to take the picture of me from today, and I'm going to say, listen, I'm making a brochure that's 8 inches wide by 11 inches high. It's going to be for a magazine. I want to take this WooCommerce Launcher logo and add it on the bottom left corner, about 1/3 of the page width, along with the picture of the fella. Can you put those together in a composite? Okay. Now, again, as I was talking about earlier, I know the word composite and I know the size and all this other sort of things. And by the way, that prompt probably won't make it the right image height because I was given a tip by somebody that I should put a frame that's 8 by 11 and that would work better, which I could do here. But what I'm saying is, think about that tool that I talked about at the beginning that makes the prompts. If I make a tool, as I will, that not only makes movies, but makes prompts for things like this, for marketing, I will have a prompt that will generate all the product brochures, that will generate all of the sales stuff, will generate all the quizzes, and it will do it automatically in exactly the format and the style that I need. Now, it surprised me because it did the 8 by 11, which is freaking awesome. But come on, you guys, do you see what I'm saying here? What I'm saying is that would have been all day work. First of all, I retired from Formula One racing. I know many of you think I still do race there, but I don't. Nobody understands anything that's real anymore. But if I was doing this for a WooCommerce site for a client and they said, how much does all this cost? And I said, well, it's kind of really expensive. It starts at $300 for the whole year. They're going to be like, what? Did I mishear you? Because they would pay $300 a month. They would pay for you to operate this $3,000, $5,000. Why? Because Dr. Hoover is maybe still here or not. I'm not sure because I'm glad that you're here. But like we were talking about, these marketing agencies that some of these friends of ours hire charge $10,000 to $20,000 a month to make janky Facebook ads. Guess what, kids? We can make the Facebook ads automatically here. Let's take this awesome image and just continue editing, shall we? I mean, just for shits and giggles, because we were joking how ridiculously expedited things are now compared to paying an agency of people sitting around, probably in some offshore location, doing things manually. This is awesome. Listen, I want to make this into a Facebook campaign. I'm going to need a couple different images here. Can you set this up so that it would be perfect for a Facebook ad that would go into a Facebook group? Make it fully compliant with everything you need it to do, plus expand upon it. I'm selling a product here called the WooCommerce Launcher. Now, that's a shitty prompt, but that's where I would use a prompt generator. With the tools that I will be building, again, doesn't take me that long apparently now, I will be building tools that will automatically generate Facebook, Instagram, YouTube compliant stuff, and will post automatically with all of the marketing things. It will also be able to do the things you've already seen me do, which is generate a song, generate live conversation. It could research based upon modern stuff or tools that I've shown you before with like the Nutritionify feed developer, things that you thought were important in the past, and it will do all of this automatically. And I'm doing this right now. This is live. This is not an imagination. This is like, it's here. Okay. So good luck to everybody else that thinks they're going to be doing this. But my point about not falling behind is the tools are here. Your clients are willing to pay for it, but they don't have any idea how to do all of this. By the way, what I'm going to do here for you guys is I'm going to copy this link. I'll put it in I should have been doing that. I'll paste it in there. You can see that live. They don't have any idea who to talk to, where to go. These friends of ours who went back to a marketing agency, it's like quite literally they went off to the store to buy a horse and a wagon after being shown flying cars. And I don't know why, but it's probably because they're uncertain, they're scared, they don't know any better, whatever. This is the problem with humans, or the benefit with humans. You are a human being. I am giving you something that makes it easy for you as a human being to sell the latest and the greatest capability, as easy as I'm showing you here with no shirt on, in minutes, and make money from your clients just paying for the basic stuff. If they get the MinuteLaunch AI by itself, it's $5 a month or $50 a year for every client. That's nothing about your service. That's nothing about you having, if you join our club and we build software, the software that you build that's custom on top of it, which, by the way, is going to be everything. But what it means is every single person is $50 a year. Now, let's say they go up the food chain and they do something more. I suggest that you could manage more for them. You could give them a service that they will pay $197 a month for on top of that basic thing. Now you're talking $2,400, $2,500 a year for every person. Get 10 people, that's $25,000 a year. 20 people, $50,000 a year. 30 people, $75,000 a year. 40 people, just 40 human beings, which, by the way, I've already demonstrated the tools here to launch and manage the subscriptions, the website, all of that relationship stuff. 40 people that are not really doing much. They're just sort of sitting there, and they're basically having you as the person that they can ask of an email. Hey, John. Hey, Fred. Hey, Susie. Hey, Betty. How do I do this thing? And you go, hey, Spence, how do I do this thing? And I go, there's an app for that. There's a MinuteLaunch solution for that. Like, right? $100,000 of recurring revenue from 40 people with nothing more than just the base tools and maybe you being available to answer questions via email. That is the future that I see for myself. I see for myself, and I dream of this and I talk about it and I think about it because I think that's what makes it reality. I see a future for myself where I am quite literally wearing a Formula One race car outfit, but probably a pilot's outfit, and I'm flying a P-51 or something. Why? Because the capacity exists for all of us to leverage our way into whatever life we want, emotionally, spiritually, financially. It is not easy because it requires you to go beyond the boundaries of what everybody else is saying or doing. But what I'm trying to show you is my entire life, since I was 10 years old, has been by doing things that I just felt and believed were correct, regardless of what everybody said around me. And I hope that I'm demonstrably showing you this here, because almost all of you have been with me on this journey at some point or another, as a client, as a customer, as a viewer. And I have always lived up to everything I've said or demonstrably shown why I failed. Because doing this live in public, sort of flying with the, out on the wing, changing the engine while we're in the air, is the only way to do it. People like it when you demonstrate your humanity. And part of the sales tool that you've got is the fact that you're not some high finagling e-commerce marketing agency. You are a real person who likewise doesn't understand at all, but is at least one step in front of your clients. And by giving them tools that they can see are within their reach to understand, and the outcome, it's amazing. You can do exactly what I'm talking about, which is we finally have achieved the dream that I think it was almost 19 years ago started, of being able to build content and networks and relationships and businesses with the tools at hand that, again, they are changing so fast. Those Meta glasses, which I want to share as we go, are going to really change things, not because Meta's glasses, but because of what they represent. Meta glasses. I just was reading about these, the new ones. They're $800 with new gen. Let's see. You can look these up, but the one day ago, AI glasses. I don't know if they've got them for sale yet. They're not $300. They're going to be $800. I think this is a Gen 2. I'll put this in here. It says 409. This is not it, but the ones they were talking about were 2 days ago. It had Zuckerberg here. I'm not a big fan of Zuck anymore for lots of reasons, but I like the fact that at least a company other than Apple is putting this stuff out. And these are basically, one of the panels really to me was exciting. See this panel here? this really got me turned on because I thought to myself, for a guy like me, this is going to be a game changer. I can't hear for to save my life sometimes. I wear hearing aids, but this was the kind of thing that's a dream come true. If I could be wearing somewhat stylish glasses, because I already kind of wear them, and I can have transcription of what everybody's saying, that is going to be awesome. But imagine that you've also got the capability built into this box, that the box and all the details and all the business information you've got is going to be available to you, your clients. And guess what? Imagine that you can deliver that kind of James Bond experience to your clients in a box, not that they have to vibe code it, not that they have to get sucked into some agency. That is what I'm talking about. Okay. It's been a different kind of a day, but I'm pretty excited. I'm taking the whole weekend to work on getting the rest of the stuff going. I want to let you guys know that have been patiently waiting, showing you the components. I got about 25 components. I've got the operating system. I'm going through all of the code with my tools and making it perfect, documenting it, making it into like, holy crap. Because my goal is not only to build some amazing stuff, but then put it together in a cohesive way that you can literally just take the stuff that I have, put your name on it, and go, hey guys, my audience, here's the solution you need. Buy this stuff, because you're going to make money on the MinuteLaunch AI. You're going to make money on the MinuteLaunch AI software. You're going to make money if they go up the chain to the startup. You're going to make money if they go and need custom build services that I can do with you or instead of you, but to your benefit. All of those things are going to be at the base, this future where we can enjoy the third chapter of our lives with delivering great value to customers who are human beings who don't have the need or the capability or the desire to do what we like to do, which is to tinker around with all these new toys. And for you, I'm delivering that guarantee, evil genius guarantee, that this is what I've pledged my life to doing, and doing it in a way that has 100% ownership and control, 100% humanistic, like you as a human being first, follow the golden rule behind it, because nothing irks me more than the successful people in the capitalistic world, and I've been there, who take their money and it destroys their brains and destroys their ability to understand that we're all in this world together. And the more that we do stuff that helps people at a reasonable price, the more we all succeed. And I love you all. I appreciate you all. I'm excited to keep going with this, but I want you all to know I'm all in. And I hope you will join me on this adventure if you've not done so already. Go to wplaunchai.com, click on the pricing, and you can get started with the AI stuff immediately. I've got this special club. I might as well show you the screen. Didn't intend to pitch anything, but I'm going to do it anyway. Go to wplaunchai. And the easiest way to get there right now, because I will be updating this and changing this to the MinuteLaunch site. I do this every time. For some reason, my browser thinks I'm a spammer. But you just go to the shop in the upper right corner, and just for $250, you can get on board with the MinuteLaunch AI. Everything I've been showing you is available to you now at basically wholesale cost, because there's no referral on this. Notice it's not $300 a year, it's $250. Join up, get in, you will get access to everything. I'm building it over here at MinuteLaunch, which is one of the conversations I had last week. By the way, one of the tools, one last show and tell since I'm here. Remember I was telling you about how we can set up things quickly. One of the things that I had built in a long time ago to LaunchKit was the idea that if you wanted to use a subset of the 128 plugins, we can give you a recipe. So for example, notice these are all the plugins that might be otherwise available for a particular type of site. We don't necessarily need all of those. What we can do instead, let's refresh this page, is we can use a subset of those, which is much shorter. And one of the things that's super cool that saves you a ton of time is if I took this and I went over to any particular site that has LaunchKit installed, and you guys, many of you have this. Let me go over here. So many windows, so little time. One of these, I'm guilty, by the way, guilty today of totally messy desktop. LaunchKit has this capability that I built a long time ago, but this is a good example of it. If you were to log in, and you, let's say, had all of the latest software bundle updated, but you didn't want to install and activate all of these things manually. This recipe is super duper 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 fast. In fact, I would normally show it to you on a new site, but I just want to like closing statement here. If you go to other tools and you go to recipe manager, this is what I used to create this recipe. I took the software that I wanted to have installed, which is a subset. Okay. And then I just simply clicked on it and I gave it a name. I called it, MinuteLaunch Practitioner. And I downloaded what's essentially that line by line list. But this can work the other way around, because notice, if you wanted to go to a site and it was brand new, you could paste that list in here and then say, upload that and use that to selectively install or enable those particular plugins only. So these are some examples of things that, again, I love Ingvar and IKEA because they figured out, like, hey, what if we took furniture and instead of it built and they have to load it on a van or a truck, what if we flat packed it? And what if in the box there was instructions with cartoons that could be read by anybody of any language? And what if we served meatballs with lingonberry sauce while people were shopping with free coffee? Like, these are the things that get me excited to get up in the morning. I hope they do for you too. Love you guys. See you next week, maybe this week with my daily updates. Talk to you soon.